Pratah smrami hridi samsfuradaatmatattvam Satchit sukham paramaham sagatim turiyam Yat swapna jagar sushuptim avaiti nityam Tad brahma nishkalamaham nacha bhuta sangha Tapo bhikshina papana shantanam vitaragina Mumukshunam apekshoyam Atma bodho vidhiyate bodhonya sadhanebhyo sakshan mokshaika sadhanam pakasya vahni vajnanam vina moksho na siddhyati. Hari Om. Welcome back to Gems of Bhagavad Gita. We will continue our discussion on chapter 10. Yesterday we stopped halfway with a very famous verse. Ahamatma Gudakesha. O Gudakesha, O Arjuna, I am the Atman in all beings. I am the self in all beings. What is the self? What is the self in all beings? Every human being, every being is a combination of spirit and matter. Is a combination of spirit and matter. The spirit is the self in you. The matter is your body, your mind, your intellect, your ego. I repeat, your spirit is the self in you. Whereas your matter equipments are the body, the mind, the intellect. Your physical body with its attributes, its senses, your mind with all its feelings, emotions, your intellect with all its thoughts, ideas, beliefs, opinions, all of these are your material component. Beyond your body, beyond your mind, beyond your intellect lies the self in you. And we'll spend some time discussing what is that self? Where is it? The point is the self in you is not known to you. You know only the body, the mind, the intellect. You know not the self. You know not the self. You know not the spirit. You're only aware of and you only relate to your material equipments. Everything you know about yourself, everything you identify about yourself, everything you express about yourself has to do with either your body and its physical attributes. I am thin, I am fat, I am tall, I am short. That's how we describe ourselves. Or our emotional attributes, our mind. I'm feeling good. Today's a good day. I'm feeling bad. I like him. I don't like him. Or our intellectual attributes. This is what I believe in. This is what I don't believe in. I think this. I don't think this. I beg to differ. Everything we know, if I ask you to describe yourself, if I ask you, please tell me something about yourself, all you will tell me is about your material equipments because that's all you know. You'll only tell me about your body. You'll tell me about your mind. You'll tell me about your intellect. That's all you'll tell me. You'll say, you'll tell me about your family also. Yes, that has to do with your emotional attributes. Your connection with your family is through your mind, your feelings, your emotions. Your connection with certain ideas and ideologies is with your intellect. You'll say, I am a capitalist or I am a socialist. It's got to do with your intellect. So everything, directly or indirectly, whatever you describe about yourself has to do with your material equipments. That's all you know. You know not the self in you, the spirit in you. And the whole point of the spiritual journey, the whole point of Vedanta, the whole purpose of the study is to rise beyond your understanding of yourself, is to rise above your understanding of yourself as this ego, this individual, and realize the self in you. Know thyself. Know thyself. Beyond your body, deeper than your mind, past your intellect, in the core of your being lies the self. And that self, he says, Aham Atma Gurakesha. That self, Bhagavan says, I am. I am that self. I am that self in all beings. The way to find me is not to look outside. The way to find me is not to go halfway across the country. The way to find me is not to do all sorts of things outwardly. The way to find me is in the core of your being. In the core of your being, because the self is in all beings. I am the self in all beings, he says. The self and matter, they combine to create you. Just as electricity and a bulb. When electricity meets the bulb, what happens? There is an expression. There is an expression of light. When electricity meets any material equipment, any electrical equipment, what happens? There is an expression of that equipment. Electricity is that essential enlivening force by which a bulb glows, by which a heater heats, by which an AC cools. The self in you is that which makes your body act, which makes your mind feel, which makes your intellect think. That's why in the Upanishad he says, I am the eye of the eye, I am the ear of the ear, I am the mind of the mind. Because the self in you is the enlivening principle. Your body will not be able to function without the self. Your mind will not be able to function. Your mind will not be able to think, feel, go through all sorts of emotions without the self enlivening it. Your intellect will not be able to think, ideate without the self enlivening it. It's like the electricity passing through the bulb of your material equipments. You have to find that self. You have to go beyond your ego. You have to go beyond your sense of individuality and discover your real nature. That is Vedanta. That is the purpose of Vedanta. And so, what is this self? We'll just go slightly deeper into investigating this, because it's important that we spend some time on this, that we don't just brush over this. This is the verse we are taking up, verse number 20, which we chanted yesterday. He says, I am the self in you. So what is this self? The self in you is the I in you. The I, not physical I, the I. You say all the time, I am this, I am that, I am this, I am that. Throughout your life, you have, at any point, you have said, I am this or I am that. You have qualified yourself. So throughout your life, you have said, I am something or the other. And everything you have described yourself with has had to do with either your body, your mind, or the intellect. So at any point, you say, I am the body. You say, I am 5 feet 5 inches tall. It's got to do with your body. I am X kilos in weight. It's got to do with your body. But 20 years ago, you didn't say that. 20 years ago, you didn't say, I am 5 feet 5 inches tall. You would have said, I am 4 feet 3 inches tall, whatever. Suppose you were maybe 40 years ago. I don't know what your age is. But before 18, 20 years of age, your height was lower than what it was. Your body was completely different. Your body was completely different. Your face was completely different. The way you looked was completely different. Your skin was very different. So are you the skin that you are today, or are you the skin you were 20 years ago? Are you the height you are today, or are you the height you were 20 years ago? Are you the body you are today, or are you the body that you were 20 years ago? The reason I say this is because you believe it is the same I. When you say I am, you say it is the same I, but you equate it to different bodies. How can the same I, the same unchanging I, be equated to different bodies? It only means that the I is different from the body. The body is like a layer over the I. 20 years ago, you had a different body that you were wearing, and now you have a different body you are wearing, no doubt. But the I is not the body. The I is within the body. But the I is distinct and different from the body. So the I is not the body. I am not the body. Why? Because the I is unchanging. On the one hand, you have something unchanging. On the other hand, you have something that is constantly changing. We are giving the example of years and years, but your body is changing every moment. Your body is changing every moment. Within 2 days, 3 days, your beard grows. Your hair grows. That's change. That's happening. Any wound you have, it heals within overnight. So the body is constantly changing. Which body are you? I am the body. Which body? How can something that is not changing, that is fixed, that is permanent, the I, the same identity, be equated to something that is constantly changing? It's not possible. The point is, we don't think about this. Conclusion is, I am not the body. Similarly, you describe yourself with emotional qualities. I like this, I don't like this, I like that, I don't like that. If you look back, अगर आप अपने पुराने messages पढ़ोगे, you laugh. At least मेरे generation में 10-15 साल पहले फेसबुक आई थी. अब आजकल ओल्ड लोग फेसबुक यूज करना शुरू करती हैं, बट हमारी जनरेशन में हम 10-15 साल पहले यूज करते थे. अब हम फेसबुक यूज नहीं करते. नाउ फेसबुक इज फॉर ओल्ड पीपल. बट समथिंग दैट इज वेरी फनी, आप 10-15 साल पीछे जाओगे और अपने स्टेटसेस पढ़ोगे, अपने पोस्ट्स पढ़ोगे, अपने कमेंट्स पढ़ोगे, we almost laugh at it. We almost have a sense of, we want to hide it. Delete tomorrow. What you felt, what you liked, what you enjoyed 10-15 years ago is very different from what you like today. People you liked, you may have been best friends with someone 10-15 years ago, someone you don't like today. And the opposite, someone you hated earlier, you love today. So which mind are you? Are you the mind that felt all those feelings and emotions and had all those desires? The desires you have completely changed. Over 20 years, the desires you have completely changed with time. So are you the mind with those feelings, those emotions, those desires of the past? Are you the mind with this feeling, this emotion, this desire today? Or are you the mind that will have different desires in the future? Which mind are you? So the mind is yours. The mind is not you. Just as the body is yours, the body is not you. I am not the mind. You must learn to make a distinction between you and your mind. The mind is yours. It's your possession. It's not you. Similarly, the intellect. Everything you know about and identify about yourself, and very strongly you assert, I have these beliefs, I believe in this, I believe in that. You're not the intellect. This intellect is changing. Your thoughts and ideas, your ideologies change, albeit less than the mind, less than the body, certainly. Your intellect isn't, your ideas and ideologies don't change every day, but they have slight, with every piece of experience, with every piece of knowledge, your intellect is changing. The intellect with which you walk into this class is not the intellect you will walk out with. The body of knowledge that you possess will change, and the way you relate to it will change. So, which intellect are you? Are you the intellect of yesteryear? मैं ना 15 साल पहले थोड़ा silly था. I didn't understand these things. You'll tell yourself, I didn't understand this 15, 20 years ago, but with experience now I understand. This is what you say, right? So which intellect are you? Are you the intellect that did not understand? Are you the intellect that does understand today? And you will continue to change. Your thoughts and ideas will continue to change. So similarly, the intellect is constantly changing. It is not you. The intellect is yours. I am not the body. I am not the mind. I am not the intellect. I am separate from it. These material equipments are not me. They are mine. That distinction we must learn to make. So what is this I? The question remains, what is this I? This unchanging I that you have been carrying throughout your life. That you have been carrying throughout your life. And Bhagavan says, the I is the self in you. The I in you is the self in you. See, the reason I'm saying this is because we must carry this thought with us. Through any experience, through any experience, we get involved in our body, in our mind, in our intellect. We get involved naturally. Even someone who studied Vedanta, we get involved. Just the ability to step back. The ability to, this thought gives you a sense of self-control. This thought gives you a sense of dispassion, a little bit of distance from your material equipments, a little bit of distance from your ego. Someone who cannot make this distinction is the most egoistic. And someone who can perfectly make this distinction has completely annihilated his ego. Someone who can clearly make this distinction has completely annihilated his ego. And someone who cannot make this distinction, even 1%, is completely egoistic. So where are you? We may all be 10, 20%. The idea is to get slightly better at making this distinction. You are not the body. You are not the mind. You are not the intellect. These are yours. You are the self. You are that I, that unchanging I. Tattvamasi. And that is what you have to realize. And Bhagavan says, I am that self in you. Brahman is the Atman in you. This is Brahman speaking in the form of Lord Krishna. Brahman is speaking. Brahman is saying, I am that self in you. Know thyself. Realize thyself. That is the ultimate purpose of life. So he says further, I am the self in all beings. There's no point looking outside. How much will you look outside? Ultimately, this is the realization you have to come to. How much will you look outside? There is no end to finding God outside. There is no end to finding chamatkars outside. There's no end to feeling a sense of wonderment outside. The way to find God is to find God in the self within you. Just as the government is all pervading throughout the country, but to find the government, you have to reach the capital. किसी राज्य की गवर्नमेंट को तक भी पहुंचने के लिए उस स्टेट की कैपिटल तक पहुंचना पड़ेगा. To reach the government, which is all pervading, its powers are all pervading, you have to go to the capital. Similarly, to reach God, which is all pervading, you have to go to the capital, the self within you. And he says, I am the beginning, the middle, and also the end of all beings. I am the beginning, the middle, the end of all beings. This self in you, This self in you has been with you throughout. This I, it was there in the beginning. When you were born with the sense of I. Your mind may not have been capable of comprehending it. You didn't have a sense of speech. You didn't have that mind developed, but that I was with you. At the end of your life, that I will be with you. Your body will change. In fact, your body will perish. Your mind will change. Your mind will perish. Your intellect will change. It will perish. But the I will stay with you. The I came with you before this body was with you. The I will stay with you after this body goes away. The I will remain, the I was with you before this body came. This I will stay with you even after this body goes. So it is the beginning, the middle, and also the end of all beings. That's what you have to realize. But Arjuna doesn't get it. So from now till verse number 40, some 20 odd verses, Bhagavan will give various manifestations. But Arjuna, you don't understand this. So let me oblige you. Well, if you want to really know, if you want me to talk about it, let me oblige you and let me give you various descriptions of my manifestation. Why does Bhagavan give these manifestations? Only for you to feel a sense of devotion, only for you to feel a sense of wonderment. And through that devotion and wonderment, may you realize, I cannot understand this. May that sense of devotion and wonderment make you go inward, make you turn quiet. When you feel you know, you're extrovert. When you feel you know, you are all the time talking and establishing what you think you know. When you realize you don't know, you become quiet. When you're in a sense of awe, you become quiet. And that's the hope. That's the hope, to make you realize that I really don't know. I really don't know. So Bhagavan will try to express this one thought, that he is all pervading. He is everywhere. He is in everything. And how will he do it? By explaining that he is the essence in all beings. He is the essence in everything. So we'll go through a few examples. I'll give you two verses to perhaps drive home the theme of the next 20 odd verses. And then we'll conclude chapter 10 with the very, very important conclusion that Bhagavan gives. So we take up two verses with that drive home this idea of the manifestations being the essence of everything. Verse number 31 and 34, I believe. Let's chant verse number 31. Pavanah pavatamasmi Ramashastrabhitamaham Jhashanam makarashchasmi Strotasamasmi Jahnavi. Pavanah pavatamasmi Ramastrabhritama Shastrabhritamaham Jhashanam makarashchasmi Strotasamasmi Jahnavi. मैं पवित्र करने वालों में वायु हूं तथा शस्त्रधारियों में राम हूं. जल जंतुओं में मकर हूं तथा नदियों में मैं गंगा हूं. I am the wind of purifiers. I am Rama of warriors. Of fishes I am the shark. Of rivers I am Jahnavi. Jahnavi is a different name for Ganga, Ma Ganga. So what he's doing in these 20 odd verses, starting from verse number 21 to verse number 40, Bhagavan is describing himself in the superlative. I am the best among everything. And I said yesterday, by being the best among everything, you pervade that thing. The best among anything is that which has all the qualities, all the attributes, all the essentials of that particular thing. Among cricketers, Virat Kohli has all the essentials of a batsman. Jasprit Bumrah. These are all my favorite cricketers. That's why I'm telling you. Jasprit Bumrah has all the attributes of a good bowler. He can swing it. He can put it slow. He can give a fast one. He can give a yorker. He can give a short ball. Everything. He has all the attributes. So if you have to describe bowling, how will you describe it? You'll describe it with Jasprit Bumrah. So by equating himself to the best among everything, He is saying, I pervade that thing. I am in that thing. I am in everything. तुम जहां देखो मैं हूं, मैं उसमें विराजमान हूं. So in that spirit he says, I am the wind of purifiers. Among all purifiers, wind is the chief purifier. Any moment your room also feels stuffy. What do you say? Zara khidki khol do. Let some fresh air come in. Any clothes or anything is smelly. What do? You put it out so that the wind will purify it. So wind is the chief among purifiers. Wind is chief among purifiers. The best solution to purify anything is to put it out. Let the sun and the wind and nature deal with it. Immediately you open the window and there's a freshness in the room. So I am wind among purifiers. I am Rama of warriors. Very interesting. I am Rama of warriors. Nobody equates war with Bhagwan Ram. Even though Bhagwan Ram was in a war, multiple wars I'm sure, nobody equates war with Bhagwan Ram. Yet he says, I am Rama among warriors. In fact, Bhagwan Ram was the upholder of dharma, upholder of Maryada. Even the Maryada of war, even the dharma of war, he maintained perfectly. How? See, wherever we go, wherever you see a Murti of Bhagwan Ram, you'll see he's carrying his bow and arrow. He's carrying his weapons. So he was perhaps the most ahimsik, and yet he's carrying bow and arrows. Why? Because he represents the purpose of war, the purpose of a warrior. The purpose of a warrior is not to attack and acquire, but to protect. The purpose of a warrior is to protect. And when adharma threatens dharma, when there is a threat to dharma, you must always be ready to fight. You must always be willing to fight. The meaning of ahimsa is not being meek. The meaning of ahimsa is not being reserved and shying away from a battle or a confrontation. The meaning of ahimsa is not having thoughts of injury, not having feelings of hurting someone else to acquire. But ahimsa doesn't mean non-violence. A warrior is one who will take to violence if there is a threat to dharma. I'm not only talking about physical violence, I'm not only talking about physical war, it could be intellectual war also. Sometimes you have to rebut something. If someone is speaking utter nonsense, you have to interject. You have to call them out. You have to call out other people's hypocrisy. Even if it may hurt them, you have to do it. Why? It is the right thing to do sometimes. I'm not saying all the times. So you have to use your intellect. You have to use your buddhi to determine when is the dharma under threat. When are the values being compromised? And at that point, you must stand up for those values. That is the dharma of a warrior. And Bhagavan Sri Ram represented that. He was always prepared, carrying his bow and arrow to protect dharma. And whenever there was, in fact, when there was a breach of dharma, he went to war. No doubt. He went to war. And then he says, of fishes, I am the shark. Of fishes, I am the shark. Of all the fishes in the ocean, the shark is the mighty. The shark is the most powerful. The shark is the most dominant, the most devouring. I am the greatest of all fishes. Of rivers, I am the Jahanavi, the mighty Ganga. There are thousands and hundreds of rivers, but perhaps the most glorious of them all. Imagine the number of people being fed by the glorious Ganga as it flows down. An entire civilization has sustained itself through this mighty river. So of all the rivers, I am the greatest. I am the mighty Ganga. I am Jahanavi. There is a deeper symbolism to this. There's a deeper symbolism to this. There's a story that goes that King Bhagirath, at a time of great despair, King Bhagirath prayed to Ma Ganga. So Ma Ganga was depicted as Akash Ganga, the river that flew in heaven. Now, don't take all these things literally. There's no, you can go as high as you want. There won't be a physical Akash Ganga flowing there. Don't take this literally. But King Bhagirath prayed to Akash Ganga that people are suffering, people are struggling, people are in pain. I need your sustenance. I need you to come down to earth and help us. And Ma Ganga warned King Bhagirath, look, I want to help you. I definitely want to come down. But you will not be able to take it. You will not be able to take the force, my force. Instead of helping you, it will actually decimate you. It will cause harm. So then they found King Bhagirath went searching for someone who could help in this process. And then they found Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva says, yes, I can receive the mighty Ganga. I can make sure that it, and then I can receive the force, and I can make sure that it flows smoothly to help you. So the story goes that Lord Shiva received the mighty Ganga in his jata. The torrential river flowed into his jata, and from his jata flowed the Ganga that you see on the earth, smooth, peacefully. So there's a deep symbolism to this story, how Bhagwan Shiv helped the Akash Ganga come onto the earth without destroying anything. Ganga represents knowledge. Ganga represents knowledge. In a time of despair, in a time of struggle, what will help you is knowledge. What will help you is knowledge. That's why King Bhagirath asked Ma Ganga for help. But the point with knowledge is that truth can be a bitter pill to swallow. Knowledge is unforgiving. In fact, the deepest of knowledge, when someone has a half-baked understanding of knowledge, it is very detrimental. So knowledge is so powerful. If you have a half-baked understanding, if you're not prepared to receive it, if you're not ready to hear the truths, it will actually cause more stress, more anxiety, more worry. It'll cause more difficulty to you. It'll be more harmful to you. Which is why we say, don't give out knowledge unnecessarily. It can be counterproductive. Knowledge is meant to be taken, not meant to be given. Knowledge is meant to be taken, not meant to be given. You may have all the knowledge. You cannot help someone if they're not ready to receive it. In fact, if you go and lecture someone, it'll be counterproductive. They'll turn rebellious. They'll resent the knowledge, or they might not be able to digest the knowledge. Particularly if someone is going through an emotional experience, you can't go and lecture to them with knowledge. It's counterproductive. They not have the ability to understand the depth of it. So knowledge has to be taken in small doses. Knowledge has to be taken in small doses. So who can receive this knowledge? A great tapasvi, a great sage, represented by Lord Shiva. A great tapasvi can receive this knowledge. Such a person is qualified through his own tapas to discover and uncover the greatest of truths, the mightiest of truths of life. And such a person then gives out the knowledge to everyone in small doses. So Bhagwan Shiv represents a guru who receives the highest knowledge through his effort and then gives it out to the rest of humanity in small doses. In these classes, we have to give knowledge in small doses. If we start giving all the knowledge all at once, half the people won't come back. A couple of days ago, I was talking about waking, dream, deep sleep. I was talking about the states of consciousness. I was talking about how this life is a dream. This kind of knowledge scares people. If I start talking about it every day, half of you will not come back. It is the truth. It is the truth, but most of us are not able to digest it, which is why we have to give it in small doses. And we have to give it occasionally. We can't speak about it every day. So Bhagwan Shiv represents that guru who gives the knowledge in small doses. So of all rivers, I am the mighty Ganga. I am that very pure knowledge which will help one and all in their spiritual journey, in their lives. We'll continue with one more verse. In the similar vein, he says one more verse in driving home this point that I am the essence of everything. Verse number 34. After 31, we'll take up 34, and these two verses will give a sense of what all he is trying to describe in 21 to 39. In these 20 odd verses, we'll chant verse number 34. Mrityu sarvaharashchaham amudbhavascha. Sorry, there's a error out here. Mrityu sarvaharashchaham udbhavasya bhavishyatam kirti shrirvakcha narinam smritir medha dhriti kshama. Mrityu sarvaharashchaham udbhavasya bhavishyatam kirti shrirvakcha narinam smritir medha dhriti kshama. मैं सबका नाश करने वाला मृत्यु हूं और आगे होने वालों की उत्पत्ति का कारण हूं तथा स्त्रियों में कीर्ति, श्री, वाक, स्मृति, मेधा, धृति और क्षमा हूं. He says, I am the all devouring death and birth of all future beings. I am the all devouring death and birth of all future beings. He compares himself to death and birth. Death and birth are two sides of the same coins. Death and birth are two sides of the same coins. First of all, death is all devouring, means it takes everything away. It is that ultimate eventuality which will swallow everything that you regard as yours, meaningful. It's like the end. It'll call a closure to everything. So it's all devouring. Everything physical, everything emotional, everything intellectual, all devouring. All your knowledge of the world will get devoured at the time of death. So I am the all devouring death and the birth of future beings. Death is a progression into birth. That's the theory of reincarnation. Death and birth have to be seen as two sides of the same coin. So he says, I am the all devouring death and birth of future beings. Of the feminine, I am Kirti, Shri, Vak, Smriti, Meda, Dhriti, and Kshama. He gives the names of 7 female deities. And we'll discuss it right now. First of all, death and birth have to be seen as two sides of the same coin. Death and birth have to be seen as two sides of the same coin. When something dies, something new is born. An older you is dying right now, a new you is being born every moment. So death and birth are in fact not just the ultimate physical death, but even momentarily, every moment, an older you is dying, a new you is born. So this point between death and birth, what pervades death and birth is the present moment. Is the present moment. So death and birth seen together represent the present, the now at which something previous ends and at which something new is about to start. The point is, we are never in the now. We are never in the now. Our thoughts, our desires are either taking us into the past, into memories, or taking us into the future, into thoughts, into anxieties, into aspirations. We are never in the present. Bhagavan says, I am the present. I am the death of the past. I am the birth of the future. I am that present moment where death happens of the past, where birth begins for the future. I am right here. This is me. A great sage said once, a seeker went to him to say, I want to know God. I want to find God. Please help me. And the great sage said to him, look between two thoughts. Look in between two thoughts. You'll find God. Our thoughts are either in the past, or our thoughts are either in the future. Look in between two thoughts. In between the beginning, the end of one thought and the beginning of the next thought. That moment, if you can stay there. Point is, it's very difficult. We can't. Only a great dhyani, only a great meditator can stay there. Look in between two thoughts. If you want to find God, you have to look between the past and the future, in the present moment. And that's the purpose of meditation. That's the purpose of dhyan, to be able to do that. So death and birth are symbolic. They have a deeper meaning. Death and birth taken together represent the present moment. He says, I am that moment. I am the all-devouring death and birth of future beings. Then he goes on to say, of the feminine, of all feminine attributes, he lists out 7 female deities. He says, I am Kirti. I am fame. Kirti means fame. I am Shri, prosperity. I am Vak, I am speech. I am Smriti, memory. I am Medha Shakti, intelligence. I am Dhriti, firmness. And I am Shama. Shama means forgiveness. Now, there's a little bit of a deep symbolism to this. These are not just names. See, the point is, very interestingly, the knowledge has been embedded into all sorts of either Puranic literature or mythological stories, or of course our itihasas. So the knowledge has been embedded. So all these names, all these deities have been given names for a reason, and even things associated with them. So if we go into the depth of it, first of all, these are either outer or inner qualities. Kirti, Shri and Vak, they represent outer qualities. Smriti, Medha, Dhriti, Kshama, they represent inner qualities. So as it goes, among these, Shri was the daughter of Maharishi Bhrigu. Shri was the daughter of Maharishi Bhrigu. Now there's a symbolism behind this. Maharishi Bhrigu was the knowledgeable, the Durdarshi. He's the one who he was a Durdarshi, he could predict. Someone who can predict, someone who has that quality of being able to see something before it happens. Someone who has that ability to anticipate, and that requires a very sharp intellect, a keen intellect, a keen observer of things. Someone who is capable of doing that, wealth will come his way. He'll be able to make decisions proactively. Most people make decisions either reactively or they don't make decisions at all. But people who are able to make decisions proactively see the change that's about to come. Such people are gifted with wealth. It could be monetary wealth, it could be emotional wealth, it could be anything, depending on the arena of life. So someone who is capable of seeing change before it actually happens, such a person is gifted with wealth. Such a person is gifted with Shri. So that's the symbolism of Maharishi Bhrigu, having a daughter named Shri. Similarly, Vak is the daughter of Lord Brahma and Saraswati, goddess Saraswati. Vak is born out of the union of creation and knowledge. Is born out of that union. Why? Because the more knowledgeable you are, the more control you have over your speech. The more knowledgeable you are. Vak represents speech, that beauty of speech, that sense of articulation. The more knowledge you have, the better you can express yourself with less words. The better you can express yourself without even speaking. You have that art of expression, that art of speech. You have that sense of control over your speech, when to speak, when not to speak, who to spend your speech on, who to not waste your speech on. That comes with knowledge. So naturally, the daughter of Lord Brahma and Goddess Saraswati is Vak. Similarly, Smriti, Medha, Dhriti, Kshama, they're all daughters, and Kirti, of course. They're all daughters of Daksha. They're all daughters of Daksha. These are all beautiful qualities to have, but they will come to you as a result of you being Daksha. Just as Shri will come to you as a result of you being Durdarshi, like Brigu. Similarly, these qualities of Kirti, Smriti, Medha, Dhriti, Shama, these will all come to you when you are Daksha, when you live your life performing your action with Daksha, with dexterity, with skill. And what is that skill in action? Yoga Kshemam, sorry, what is that skill in action? Yoga Karmasu Kaushalam. What is that skill? What is that Kaushalta in action? That is Karma Yoga. It's what we've talked about in chapter 3. Performing actions to the best of your ability, controlling your Kartritva Bhavna and Bhoktritva Bhavna. Cutting off Kartritva and Bhoktritva and doing your obligatory duties to the best of your abilities with full zeal and zest. That is the dexterity in action. That is when you will invite these qualities into your life. So we'll discuss this more in detail tomorrow, and then we'll move into the conclusion. What is the point of all of this? Why is Bhagavan saying all of this? And why all of these expressions are actually limited? But anyway, discussing things like this actually help us. So in some ways, we've got, some benefit from all of this that Bhagavan is saying, because we get to discuss these things in detail and we get these new perspectives. So we'll meet again tomorrow. We'll discuss this verse a little more, and then we'll conclude chapter 10. With that thought, we'll end today's class. Hari Om Tat Sat. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevapashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.